What if the penny hiding in an old jar, a dusty drawer, or even your pocket change right now could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars? It sounds impossible. But for some collectors, the 1942 Lincoln penny with no mint mark has become exactly that kind of hidden treasure. At first glance, the coin looks ordinary. Small, brown, worn by decades of use. Most people would never give it a second look. They would spend it without hesitation. But coin collectors know a secret. Sometimes the most valuable treasures are the ones everyone else ignores. The story begins in 1942. The world was in turmoil. World War II was raging across continents. Factories were shifting production. Resources were being redirected toward the war effort. America was producing millions of coins to keep commerce moving, and among them was the Lincoln penny. The 1942 penny without a mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Back then, Philadelphia pennies typically carried no mint mark at all. So if you see a 1942 penny with no letter beneath the date, that means it was made in Philadelphia. Now here comes the surprising part. More than 650 million of these pennies were produced. That number sounds enormous, and it is. Most examples are still common today. In circulated condition, many are worth only a small premium above face value. So why are collectors constantly searching for them? Because not all 1942 pennies are created equal. Some survived in extraordinary condition. Others were struck with fascinating mint errors. And a few have become legendary among collectors. Imagine two people holding identical-looking 1942 pennies. One coin might be worth a few cents. The other could be worth thousands of dollars. That tiny difference is what keeps collectors hunting. The standard 1942 Lincoln penny was made from an alloy containing mostly copper with a small amount of tin and zinc. It weighed approximately 3.11 grams and featured Abraham Lincoln on the front and the classic wheat ears on the reverse. For many Americans living through wartime uncertainty, this coin was simply everyday money. It bought candy, paid for newspapers, passed through countless hands. Nobody imagined that decades later people would study these pennies under magnifying glasses, searching for tiny details that could change their value dramatically. One of the biggest factors is condition. Collectors use grading systems to determine how well a coin has survived. Most 1942 pennies spent years in circulation. They became scratched, worn, and faded, but a small number escaped that fate. Some were tucked away in rolls. Some were stored in collections. Others somehow avoided heavy wear. When a 1942 no-mint mark penny is found with blazing original luster and virtually no signs of circulation, collectors take notice immediately. High-grade examples can sell for hundreds of dollars. The finest known specimens have reached into the thousands. Think about that for a moment. A coin originally worth 1 cent becoming worth thousands of dollars simply because it remained untouched while millions of others wore down over time. But condition is only part of the mystery. The real excitement begins when errors enter the picture. Mint errors happen when something goes wrong during production. These mistakes can transform an ordinary coin into a collector's dream. One famous variety associated with 1942 cents involves double dies. This occurs when the coin die receives multiple impressions that do not align perfectly. The result is visible doubling on letters, numbers, or design elements. To the average person, the coin may look normal. To a trained collector, it could look like a jackpot. Certain double die examples from this era command strong premiums because they are scarce and highly sought after. Then there are off-center strikes. Picture a coin entering the press slightly misaligned. Part of the design fails to appear correctly. Instead of being considered damaged, these genuine mint mistakes often become desirable collectibles. The more dramatic the error, the more attention it attracts. Collectors love the unexpected. They love coins that tell unusual stories. And mint errors do exactly that. Another reason the 1942 penny fascinates collectors is its place in American history. This coin was struck just before one of the most famous changes in U.S. coinage. In 1943, copper became critically important for wartime production. The mint switched from traditional bronze cents to steel cents coated with zinc. That means the 1942 penny represents the final full year before this historic transition. It marks the end of an era. When collectors hold a 1942 penny, they are holding a piece of history from a world on the verge of major change. That historical significance adds another layer of appeal. An appeal drives demand. Demand drives prices. Prices drive treasure hunters. Today, collectors search through old collections, estate sales, coin jars, and inherited boxes hoping to uncover overlooked examples. Many success stories begin the same way. Someone inherits a collection. Someone discovers an old jar in an attic. Someone notices an unusual penny while sorting change. Most finds turn out to be common, but every now and then, a remarkable discovery appears. Pristine coin, a rare error, a forgotten treasure. Those moments keep the hobby alive. As for value, most circulated 1942 no-mint mark pennies are worth anywhere from a few cents to a few dollars depending on condition. Better preserved examples can reach tens or even hundreds of dollars. Exceptional uncirculated pieces often command much higher prices. And rare error varieties can push values dramatically upward, sometimes into the thousands. The difference often comes down to details invisible to the naked eye. That's why experienced collectors never rush. They inspect carefully. They weigh coins. They study surfaces. They examine dates and lettering. Every tiny detail matters. And sometimes those details reveal something extraordinary. The next time you see a 1942 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it as just another old coin. Remember where it came from. Remember the wartime history behind it. Remember that millions were made, but only a handful survived in truly remarkable condition. Remember that hidden errors can turn ordinary coins into collector favorites. And remember that treasures don't always glitter. Sometimes they look like a humble penny that's been waiting decades for someone to notice its true value. So now I have to ask you something. If you found a 1942 no-mint mark Lincoln penny in your collection today, would you spend it without looking? Or would you inspect it closely knowing it might be worth far more than 1 cent? Let me know in the comments. I'm about to tell you the story of a penny that looked so ordinary that millions of people spent it without a second thought. Yet some examples have sold for astonishing amounts and continue to fuel one of the biggest treasure hunts in American coin collecting. Imagine reaching into your pocket and finding a small copper coin dated 1950. Most people would barely glance at it. They would toss it into a jar, spend it at a store, or leave it forgotten in a drawer. But collectors know something different. They know that certain 1950 Lincoln pennies without a mint mark can be far more interesting than they appear. The year was 1950. America was entering a new decade. The country was growing, industries were booming, and millions of coins were being struck to keep commerce moving. Among those coins was the famous Lincoln cent, a design that had already become a symbol of everyday American life. Now here is where the mystery begins. When collectors see a Lincoln penny without a mint mark, many immediately wonder if they have found something special. Why? Because the absence of a mint mark tells an important story. A 1950 Lincoln penny with no mint mark was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. During that era, Philadelphia pennies typically carried no mint mark at all. At first glance, that might not sound rare. And in truth, most 1950 Philadelphia pennies are not rare. But that does not mean they are worthless. Far from it. The real excitement starts when condition enters the picture. Think about it this way. Millions upon millions of these pennies were made. Most entered circulation. They bounced from hand to hand. They sat in cash registers. They traveled across the country. They were scratched, worn, dropped, and damaged. Every year that passed reduced the number of pristine survivors. Today, finding a sharply struck 1950 Lincoln penny that looks almost exactly as it did on the day it left the mint is much harder than most people realize. Collectors pay huge premiums for quality. A worn example may be worth only a few cents or perhaps a small premium over face value. But an uncirculated example with strong luster and outstanding eye appeal can command dramatically higher prices. And the very finest known specimens can reach levels that surprise even experienced collectors. That is because elite collectors are not competing for ordinary coins. They are competing for the absolute best. Now let's look closer at the coin itself. On the front, you will see the portrait of President Abraham Lincoln. This design was created by Victor David Brenner and first appeared in 1909. It was the first regularly circulating American coin to feature a real historical person. That alone makes the Lincoln cent historically significant. On the reverse of the 1950 penny, you will find the famous wheat ears design. Two wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent and United States of America. These coins are often called wheat pennies, and wheat pennies have become one of the most collected coin series in the world. Part of their appeal comes from the thrill of discovery. Collectors know that valuable varieties and errors can hide in plain sight. That brings us to another reason people search through 1950 pennies. Mint errors. While most 1950 no-mint mark pennies are normal issues, certain error coins can attract tremendous attention. Collectors look for doubled lettering, off-center strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, and other unusual mistakes that occurred during production. A dramatic mint error can transform an otherwise common penny into a highly sought-after collectible. Imagine spotting unusual doubling in the date or lettering. Imagine finding a striking error that escaped the mint decades ago and remained unnoticed all this time. That possibility keeps treasure hunters searching rolls of pennies every single day. But there is another factor that drives value: color. Many new collectors overlook this completely. Copper coins are often classified by their color. A penny that has retained its original bright red appearance can be worth significantly more than one that has turned brown over time. Why? Because preserving that original mint color for more than 70 years is incredibly difficult. A blazing red 1950 Lincoln cent can attract intense bidding when it appears at auction. The difference between a brown coin and a red coin can sometimes mean hundreds or even thousands of dollars. That is not an exaggeration. Condition and color together can completely change the value story. Now imagine two people each own a 1950 no-mint mark penny. One has a heavily worn coin that's circulated for decades. The other has a nearly flawless red example with exceptional detail and mint luster. Technically, they own the same date and mint, yet their coins could have dramatically different values. That is the fascinating world of coin collecting. Tiny details matter. Very tiny details. Collectors often examine coins under magnification, searching for features invisible to the naked eye. A slight imperfection, a rare die variety, a superior strike. These details can separate an ordinary coin from a prized collectible. Auction history provides some amazing examples of this phenomenon. High-grade 1950 Lincoln cents certified by professional grading services have achieved prices far beyond what most people would expect from a 1-cent coin. When top collectors compete for the finest known examples, prices can climb rapidly. The battle becomes less about the coin's face value and more about rarity within condition rankings. That concept surprises newcomers. How can a penny be worth so much? The answer is simple: scarcity. Not scarcity of the date itself, scarcity of perfection. And perfection is incredibly rare. That is why collectors obsess over grades. A small improvement in condition can mean a major jump in value. Meanwhile, countless 1950 pennies continue to sit unnoticed in jars, albums, and old family collections. Some were inherited. Some were saved by grandparents. Some remain hidden in boxes that have not been opened in decades. Every one of those coins carries a story of post-war America, a story of everyday transactions, a story of survival through generations. And every so often, one of those forgotten pennies turns out to be far more valuable than anyone expected. That possibility keeps the hunt alive. Even today, people search bankrolls, estate sales, flea markets, and old collections hoping to uncover a remarkable example. Most searches end with ordinary finds, but collectors know that all it takes is one exceptional coin, one overlooked treasure, one lucky discovery. The 1950 no-mint mark Lincoln penny may not be the rarest coin ever made. It may not be the most famous, but it perfectly represents why coin collecting is so exciting. A coin worth 1 cent can become a prized collectible. A forgotten pocket change piece can become a centerpiece of a collection. and an ordinary-looking penny can send collectors racing for magnifying glasses and coin albums. So now I have to ask you something. Have you ever checked your old pennies for hidden value? And if you found a 1950 no mint Mark Lincoln penny today, would you keep it, sell it, or start your own treasure hunt? I'm about to tell you about a penny that looks completely ordinary, yet one tiny detail could make collectors stop in their tracks and reach for their wallets. Imagine digging through an old jar of coins sitting in your house for decades. Dust everywhere, pennies piled on top of each other. Nothing special, right? Then suddenly, you spot the date 1951. At first glance, it seems like just another old Lincoln cent. But what if that little coin has a story stretching back more than 70 years and could be worth far more than 1 cent? The 1951 Lincoln wheat penny was minted during a fascinating period in American history. The United States was recovering from World War II and stepping into a new era of growth and innovation. Cars were filling highways, television sets were entering living rooms, and millions of pennies were being produced every year to keep commerce moving. Now here is where things get interesting. When collectors talk about a 1951 penny with no mint mark, they are referring to a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Back in 1951, Philadelphia coins typically did not carry a mint mark. So if you find a 1951 penny with no letter beneath the date, that does not automatically make it rare. But don't stop watching yet, because value in the coin world is not always about age. It is often about condition, rarity, and hidden details that most people never notice. The Philadelphia Mint produced more than 284 million Lincoln cents in 1951. That sounds like an enormous number, and it was.
Millions survivaient. Millions circulated.
Millions were spent on candy, newspapers, and everyday purchases. So why are collectors still interested? Because finding one in exceptional condition is a completely different story. Think about it. Most of these pennies spent years changing hands. They bounced around cash registers. They rattled in pockets. They got scratched, worn, and damaged. Every year that passed reduced the number of pristine examples remaining. Today, collectors compete fiercely for the finest surviving specimens. A worn 1951 no-mint mark penny might only be worth a few cents to a few dollars. Nice, but nothing life-changing. But when you move into higher grades, the story changes dramatically. Coins graded mint state can command significantly higher prices. These are coins that escaped circulation and preserved much of their original appearance. They still display sharp details on Abraham Lincoln's portrait. The wheat ears on the reverse remain crisp and clear. And then there are the absolute elite examples. The best-known specimens certified by professional grading services have sold for hundreds and even thousands of dollars. Imagine that. A coin originally worth 1 cent becoming worth more than an expensive smartphone, a vacation, or even a used car. That transformation is what makes coin collecting feel like treasure hunting. But condition is only part of the mystery. Collectors also search for unusual mint errors. Mint errors happen when something goes wrong during production. Maybe the die was damaged. Maybe the coin was struck incorrectly. Maybe there was a problem during the minting process that created a unique appearance. These mistakes can turn ordinary coins into collector favorites. For some 1951 pennies, enthusiasts have reported die cracks, die chips, and other minor varieties. While not every error creates massive value, certain unusual examples can attract strong collector interest. The exciting part? Most people never check. They spend old pennies without looking. They toss them into jars. They ignore them completely. Meanwhile, collectors carefully inspect every detail. A tiny raised line, a strange mark, an unusual doubling effect. Any of these could be the clue that separates a common coin from a valuable discovery. Now let's talk about the design itself. The Lincoln wheat penny is one of the most beloved coins in American history. The front features Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. This design was introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. That alone was historic. Before Lincoln appeared on the cent, American circulating coins generally avoided depicting real people. Putting a president on a coin marked a major shift in U.S. coinage. On the reverse, Two wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent and United States of America. Simple, elegant, instantly recognizable. For generations, Americans carried these coins every day without realizing they were handling pieces of history. And every 1951 penny represents a moment frozen in time. Think about where that coin may have traveled. Maybe it bought a soda in a small-town diner. Maybe it helped pay for a movie ticket. Maybe it crossed the country in someone's pocket. Maybe it sat forgotten in a drawer while decades passed by. Each coin has a journey we can never fully know. That mystery is part of the appeal. Collectors are not just buying metal. They are buying stories. And sometimes the stories become even more fascinating when rare examples appear at auctions. When an exceptionally preserved 1951 no-mint mark penny surfaces, bidding can become surprisingly competitive. Collectors know that top-grade coins are much harder to find than most people realize. Anyone can locate a circulated 1951 penny. Finding one that looks almost exactly as it did when it left the mint more than 7 decades ago. That is another challenge entirely. And challenges create demand. Demand creates competition. Competition creates value. That is the formula that keeps the coin market exciting year after year. Here's something many beginners overlook. Color matters too. Copper coins are often categorized by how much original red color remains. A bright red example can be far more desirable than one that has turned brown over time. 2 pennies with the same date. 2 pennies with the same mint. Yet one may be worth dramatically more simply because it retained its original appearance. That tiny difference can mean everything. So if you ever find a 1951 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark, don't rush to judge it. Look closely. Check the details. Examine the wheat stalks. Study Lincoln's portrait. Look for unusual errors. Pay attention to the color. And most importantly, consider the condition. Because the difference between an ordinary coin and an extraordinary coin often comes down to details smaller than a grain of rice. That is what makes coin collecting so addictive. Every penny becomes a possibility. Every old jar becomes a treasure chest. Every forgotten collection becomes an adventure waiting to happen. And somewhere out there, a 1951 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is still hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to recognize its true significance. So here's the question. If you found a 1951 Lincoln wheat penny in your pocket change today, would you spend it without a second thought? Or would you take a closer look to see if you might be holding a hidden treasure? I'm about to tell you the story of a penny that most people would spend without a second thought, even though some examples have sold for hundreds, thousands, and in exceptional condition, even more. The coin is the 1952 D. Lincoln wheat penny, and hidden inside millions of ordinary-looking pennies is a treasure hunt that still excites collectors today. Back in 1952, America was changing fast. The country was in the middle of the post-war boom. New homes were rising. Cars filled the roads. Families were building a new future. And while all of that was happening, the Denver Mint was quietly producing billions of coins for everyday commerce. Among them was the 1952 D. Lincoln cent. At first glance, it looks simple. Abraham Lincoln on the front, 2 wheat stalks on the back, a small D mint mark beneath the date. Nothing flashy, nothing rare-looking, but that is exactly what makes this coin so fascinating. Because the biggest treasures often hide in plain sight. The Denver Mint struck more than 746 million Lincoln cents in 1952. That number sounds enormous, and it is. So you might think the coin is worthless. But experienced collectors know something important. The story is not about how many were made. The story is about how many survived in exceptional condition. Most of these pennies entered circulation immediately. They passed through cash registers. They rattled around in pockets. They disappeared into jars, piggy banks, and forgotten drawers. Every scratch, every nick, every year of use slowly erased their original beauty. Today, finding a heavily worn 1952 D penny is easy. Finding one that looks almost exactly as it did the day it left the mint is a completely different challenge. And that challenge creates value. Collectors are obsessed with quality. 2 pennies with the same date can have dramatically different prices. One might be worth only a few cents, The other could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. That difference comes down to preservation. Imagine two identical cars built in the same year. One has been driven every day for decades. The other has been stored in a garage and barely touched. Which one would collectors want? The same principle applies to coins. Now here is where things get really interesting. Many 1952 Lincoln cents were struck with strong details. But finding examples with blazing original mint luster is much harder. That shimmering glow collectors call mint luster is often the first thing lost in circulation. Once it disappears, it never comes back. Coin can be cleaned. Coin can be polished. But original mint luster is something entirely different. And collectors pay huge premiums for it. The color of the coin matters too. Lincoln wheat cents are generally classified as brown, red-brown, or red. Brown examples have toned over time. Red-brown examples retain part of their original copper color. But full red examples are the stars of the show. These coins still display much of the bright copper appearance they had when first minted. And that bright color can dramatically increase value. Now let's talk about errors. This is where treasure hunters get excited. Most 1952 pennies are normal. But collectors constantly search through old rolls and collections hoping to discover unusual minting mistakes. Off-center strikes, cracks, chips, repunched mint marks on certain coins from the era. These unusual features can transform an ordinary penny into something much more desirable. The rarer the error, the greater the excitement. And sometimes the value skyrockets. Imagine looking through a jar of old coins inherited from a relative. Most are common. Then suddenly you notice something unusual. A strange strike, a visible error, a detail that should not be there. That moment is exactly why coin collecting remains so addictive. Every coin is a mystery waiting to be solved. The 1952 Lincoln cent also belongs to one of the most beloved coin series in American history. The Lincoln wheat cent debuted in 1909. It was the first regular U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. That person was Abraham Lincoln. For generations, Americans carried his image in their pockets every day. Collectors love the series because it connects history, art, and treasure hunting into a single hobby. Every date tells a story. Every mint mark reveals where a coin was born. Every condition level creates a new challenge. The 1952 is part of that larger adventure. And because it is a wheat cent, demand remains strong. Thousands of collectors are still building complete Lincoln wheat cent sets. Whenever collectors build sets, demand follows. And when demand follows, values can rise. So what is a 1952 Lincoln penny actually worth? A heavily circulated example is usually worth only a small amount above face value. Nothing life-changing. But things become much more exciting when condition improves. Nice uncirculated examples can sell for significantly more. Coins certified by professional grading services often bring even stronger prices. And top-grade red examples can reach hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on their quality and market demand. That is a huge jump from 1 cent. Think about that for a moment. A coin originally worth a single penny can become worth hundreds or even thousands simply because it survived better than others. That is what makes coin collecting so fascinating. Value is not always about age. It is not always about rarity. Sometimes it is about survival. The best survivors become the most sought-after treasures. And there is another reason collectors love coins like the 1952 They are still out there. Unlike many legendary rarities locked away in museum collections, Lincoln wheat cents continue appearing in old collections, estate sales, and inherited coin jars. People still discover them. People still overlook them. People still spend them without realizing what they have. Some of the most exciting coin discoveries happen because someone decided to take a closer look. 1 penny, 1 date, 1 mint mark. That is all it takes. The next time you find a wheat penny, do not rush past it. Check the date. Look for the mint mark. Study the condition. Pay attention to the color. Look for unusual errors. Because hidden among ordinary coins could be a piece of history with surprising value. And the 1952 D. Lincoln wheat penny is proof that even the smallest coin can hold a remarkable story. So now I want to know, have you ever found a wheat penny in your change? And if you discovered a 1952 D. Lincoln cent today, would you keep it, sell it, or hold on to it as your own little piece of American history? I'm about to tell you the story of a penny that millions of people have touched, ignored, and spent without realizing it could be hiding a surprising secret. The year was 1953. America was changing fast. Cars were getting bigger. Televisions were appearing in living rooms across the country. And deep inside the U.S. Mint, millions upon millions of Lincoln pennies were rolling off the presses. Most people saw them as ordinary pocket change. Collectors today know better. If you've ever found a 1953 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, you may be holding a coin with far more history than its tiny size suggests. But what makes this little copper coin so fascinating? Let's dig into the mystery. First, the missing mint mark. Many people see a 1953 penny without a mint mark and instantly think something is wrong. Some even assume it must be rare because the mint mark is missing. Here's the twist. For Lincoln pennies made in Philadelphia during 1953, no mint mark was actually normal. That blank space beneath the date wasn't a mistake. It was the Philadelphia Mint's standard practice. And in 1953, the Philadelphia Mint produced an astonishing 256 million Lincoln cents. That sounds like a huge number, because it is. So if hundreds of millions were made, why are collectors still interested? The answer lies in survival. Coins were made to be spent. They traveled through cash registers. They rattled around in pockets. They sat in jars. They got scratched, worn, dropped, and damaged. Every year, fewer high-quality examples survive. And that's where the treasure hunt begins. Imagine two identical 1953 pennies. One spent decades bouncing around in circulation. The other was carefully saved the day it was minted. Today, the worn coin might be worth only a few cents. The pristine coin could be worth dramatically more. Condition changes everything. Collectors use grading scales to determine quality. The closer a coin looks to the day it left the mint, the more desirable it becomes. A sharply struck 1953 Philadelphia penny with bright, original luster can attract serious attention. And when top-grade examples appear at auction, the numbers can become surprisingly impressive. Some certified mint-state examples have sold for hundreds of dollars. The finest known examples have reached even higher levels because elite collectors compete fiercely for the very best. But condition is only part of the story. The real excitement often comes from mistakes. Coin collectors love errors. Why? Because mistakes aren't supposed to happen. Every error tells a story from the minting process. A tiny mechanical problem, a misaligned D, a striking issue, something unexpected. And when something unexpected happens, collectors start paying attention. Some 1953 pennies have been found with off-center strikes. Others show die cracks. Some display repunched mint mark varieties on coins from other mints. There are examples with unusual die characteristics that specialists spend years studying. To most people, these details look insignificant. To collectors, they're clues. Tiny clues that can transform an ordinary penny into a sought-after collectible. That's what makes coin hunting so addictive. You never know when a small detail could mean a big difference in value. Now let's talk about the man on the coin, Abraham Lincoln. His portrait first appeared on the cent in 1909. That was a groundbreaking moment. Before Lincoln, American circulating coins generally featured symbolic figures rather than real historical people. The Lincoln cent changed that tradition forever. By 1953, Lincoln had already appeared on pennies for more than 4 decades. Yet Americans continued carrying his image every single day. Think about that. A coin honoring a president who had died nearly 90 years earlier was still being produced by the hundreds of millions. And today, more than 70 years after 1953, those same pennies continue to circulate through collections, estate sales, flea markets, and old coin jars. Some are still waiting to be discovered. That possibility keeps collectors searching. There is something thrilling about opening an old box of coins. Most of the time, you find common change. Then suddenly, a date catches your eye. No mint mark, You pause. You look closer. Is the strike sharp? Is the surface original? Could there be an error? That moment of uncertainty is what drives the hobby. Because every coin has potential. Of course, not every 1953 penny is valuable. That's an important reality. Many examples are worth only a modest premium over face value. But the best pieces are a different story. Collectors pay for rarity. Collectors pay for condition. Collectors pay for eye appeal. And when all three come together, the results can be remarkable. Even more interesting is the fact that people often overlook these coins because they seem common. After all, it's just a penny, right? That's exactly what makes coin collecting so exciting. Treasure doesn't always look like treasure. Sometimes it looks like a small brown coin sitting unnoticed in a jar. Sometimes it hides in a collection inherited from a relative. Sometimes it's tucked away in a forgotten envelope for decades. And every once in a while, someone discovers that a coin they nearly ignored is worth far more than expected. Stories like that happen more often than you might think. That's why experienced collectors examine every coin carefully. Not because every coin is valuable, because the next valuable coin could be anywhere. The 1953 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny represents something bigger than its market value. It's a surviving piece of American history. It witnessed a different era. An era of jukeboxes, drive-in theaters, and black and white television. An era when a penny could actually buy something. Today, that same coin serves as a miniature time machine. A small copper reminder of the world that existed more than 70 years ago. And perhaps that's the greatest value of all. Not the dollars. Not the auction records. Not even the rarity. The story. Every scratch tells a story. Every mark tells a story. Every surviving 1953 penny has traveled a unique path through history to reach the present day. The next time you see one, don't dismiss it as spare change. Take a closer look. Examine the date. Check the condition. Search for unusual features. You might discover a fascinating piece of history, or you might uncover something far more valuable than you expected. So now I want to know this. Have you ever searched through an old coin jar and found a penny that looked unusual? And if you found a 1953 Lincoln penny with no mint mark today, would you keep it, sell it, or start a collection around it?